Gen Z bus and a mini. Gen Z bus and a mini. Itty bitty titties and a bob. Itty bitty titties and a bob. 5'3" and an attitude. 5'3" and an attitude. Secret product in the trench. Secret product in the trench. New friend green and a sneaky link. New friend green and a sneaky link. Fake 10 hands in a hoop. Fake 10 hands in a hoop.
Hello and welcome to the Hypertrophy Odyssey chapter 392. It is the second day of the week, aka the special beam cannon workout. I'm feeling very good right now. Very excited for this workout. But anyways, to the main subject matter for today, which I don't know what I'm going to call it really, but it's basically women in the workforce is basically half of what it is. The other half is talking about the video that I hopefully put in the front of this video. And just that video really still in the zeitgeist of a lot of people. It's up there with the bear question, which I talked about in this episode right here, about just how that kind of nudged itself into the central zeitgeist of many people. I think that TikTok from earlier really also dug like a really weird knife into certain people. And I think it's understandable, but we'll probably get into that later. This is just going to be generally what it's like, I guess, to be women in the workforce, the general idea that now it's kind of seen as an interesting like dynamic per se, certain frictions that have come up, you know, personal experience, all those other things are just going to go into it. Recently, there was an article right here about opinion have women ruined the workforce. I didn't read it because I will probably for the voiceover, but I didn't read it because I have no real interest in it in the certain sense that it is very weird to be in a predominantly woman workforce. I gotta say, I work as I'm not gonna say exactly what I do, but I'm a paralegal, but it's mostly women around me. Even the lawyers that I work with are mostly women. My one true boss is a man, but that's really it. But I want to save that for the voiceover because it's a very interesting dynamic. I think that although I'm technically the lowest on the totem pole, it's weird being the like one of the few dudes in the office in general. Not to say I'm the only one, but it's definitely a 3-to-1 ratio. You know, for every one man, there's 3 women. So it's very interesting, and there's nothing wrong with it per se, but it is an interesting dynamic to get into, and I can totally see why people hate that intro video because of certain demographics like that. Because, hey, look at that. I imagine that there's probably some people watching this video or have stumbled upon that video who's unemployed that's like, wow, these women are getting paid to do TikTok while I'm sitting here rotting with a degree in debt that I can't really do much about. And for those people, it sucks. I really can't say anything about it because it's just the way it is. But we'll probably get more into all of that stuff and a couple other things, including, you know, what is the point really of having women in the workforce? And you'll see what I mean by that later when we get to that. But we'll talk more about that when we get to Mother Race.
All right, so started this day off with squats, which were pretty good. But anyways, back to the main subject matter for today. Women in the workforce. So the main reason why I want to discuss this is because of that video that was in the intro there. Because that video happened to break the collective unconscious of many men in the world that I've seen, and it still comes up as a little bit of an example as to what is happening in the workforce currently. I think that a lot of people are upset with that video in particular because I think it is an ultimate demonstration of not taking things seriously as it could be, as what is this for? Now, of course, there have been many examples of this throughout the years, including the nurses TikToks epidemic that happened during 2020, where people were like, why are these hospitals filming TikToks when in reality they should be working, right? And that's part of an issue. But I think generally speaking, I think this speaks to the frustration that happens a lot between the issues that happen between the male and female perspective. And I think that that's the biggest crux of it, really. There's nothing necessarily wrong with women in the workforce. Hell, there are certain people that do very well in their respective field, and depending on what it is. But I think this comes into question as what is meaning? I think that that's the main idea of it, really, is that when we boil it down to it, I think a lot of dudes have lost meaning in life, really. And even though a job can be menial, kind of stupid and pointless, it can give them something to look forward to. Whilst women, they can derive meaning from a job, of course, that is something that can happen, but it's not necessarily something that they have to have, if that makes any sense, because women inherently have the ability to procreate. So that, thus, they have the ability to have another meaning through life. It's not just one alleyway that they have. Whilst a man, it's very rare to have a second meaningful thing. That's why a lot of them end up becoming, hobbyists or just want to go do war almost. They want something in their life that isn't just a menial task to them. So it's a very interesting dynamic when most of the jobs that people can do are filled up by women, which honestly, sometimes they honestly don't even want to do. There's a majority of women that just don't want the job that they're at. They're just doing it because they're either forced to because of student loans, or because they just know that they're in so deep that they can't get out. And it's kind of sucks for them, because a lot of the time this happens where they get stuck in a dead end job or stuck at a place where they don't actually really want to be, and more so just kind of going through the motions until something happens, really. And I know examples of this. I've seen this as an old elementary school friend of mine ended up changing her job completely, leaving what she had and then going to start a farm up. That's one thing. Or I have a coworker as well who's just kind of drifting right now, wants to do other things in her life, but doesn't really have a purpose or goal. And I'm not going to sit here and say that all women need to be, barefoot in the kitchen and all that other stuff, but it's more of a exploratory reasoning as to why don't we actually try to help people try to figure out what they want to do with their life that isn't necessarily a monetary gain. Because at the end of the day, all women in the workforce has helped is the GDP. It hasn't helped people liberate themselves in a certain way that they once thought they would be. Sure, they might be independent in quote financially, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've gone anywhere. Just because you are free financially doesn't mean that you are knowing what you want to do with your life or what life even means. Just because you have a job that provides you money, that just means that you have money to access a rope. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. You're at the end of the day, you could just be accelerating towards the bottom, or even worse, taking others with you while you accelerate to the bottom. This is more of an issue with the general population of what is meaning. And I think that women have been kind of shoved this idea of work being a meaningful task, when in reality, it's not as meaningful as it could be. There are other things that probably could have more meaning for them. And I think that a lot of men have also been duped by this, because then a lot of dudes are floating around in the world not really having any meaning at all. And then thus they're just fucked. That's the best way to describe it. There's such a concentration on the bottom dollar, no matter who you are, that there is no real actual concentration on what do you actually want to do with your life, because a lot of people are thrown into the workforce so early in life or right after college, when in reality, these are times where you have to kind of figure it all out. Then at 18, you have to figure out exactly what you want to do so you can go to college to get your degree in order to go on into the workforce immediately. There is no moment to actually figure out, hey, maybe going to college for this one thing that I have a mildly or fledgling interest in is probably not a good idea. But oh wait, I have no real other options, or else I'm going to be screwed later on. And that's always how it is, really. It's just like a forcing into the funnel where a lot of people are ending up on the other side or halfway through it realizing, oh shit, I fucked up. I think it's an interesting dynamic at my office where I'm one of the few men that's around. Not that there's anything wrong with working with women and all that other stuff, but it's just an interesting thing to notice, particularly when I have to go into a commute in the train or whatever. You see a lot of women in there, but a lot of them look utterly miserable, and you can tell that they don't want to be there. I mean, who really wants to be there? But you can really tell they do not want to be there at all.
And we're back. Welcome to the workout debriefing. Exercises not filmed, none. Exercises skipped, also none. got everything in, thankfully, even though it wasn't that many sets, but whatever. Back to the main subject matter for today. Women in the workforce. So the main reason why I wanted to discuss this is not because I want to be like, we should abolish all women in the workforce and it should be a men-only thing or whatever. That can is long gone. We can never do that ever again. Unfortunately, even if that were even if that was even viable, it's not viable anymore. Like, it's just not. That's long gone. The main reason why I wanted to discuss this is because I think a lot of women that are in the workforce currently would probably not want to be in the workforce. I think that we've gotten to the point now where if you just ask like a majority of them, would you rather have this job or go do something else? I think a majority would say go do something else, which is an interesting dichotomy because I think a lot of dudes who are unemployed would say, would you rather be unemployed or go have this what is essentially menial task job that is now given to women? Which one would you rather have? And at least I think a good chunk of them would say the job, because at least they're doing something productive towards society rather than just being unemployed. Now, I'm not saying unemployed doesn't have its benefits, of course, but at the same time, I think that having a purpose, whether it be as menial as something just nothing, like a nothing job, is still better than what they are given currently. And I think that it's weird. It's like we've reversed the roles really in the gender dynamics when it comes to the workforce. And I think that that's causing a lot of people to just kind of be lost in society and more so just floating around, not really knowing what they want to do. And it's not like there aren't good workers, good women workers, or bad men workers or anything like that. Those two still exist. It's just more of a open discussion, more so along the lines of, would you really want to be here? You know, do you really want to be doing this for the next 40 years? You know, don't you want to be going doing something else, starting a family, meeting someone, you know, to share your life with? Things like that just seem like a little bit more like, obviously they get put on the back burner, but then they get put on the back burner a little too much to when there's nobody good left. But that's kind of a different story for a different day. But I think that that's the main crux of it really, is just that it seems as though a lot of the workforce is just a replacement for actually going out and getting the other steps in life done, really. I think that there are exceptions, of course, that are doing well and are really good at it. You know, I'm not going to say they aren't deserving of having jobs. I just feel like a lot of them would probably want to do something else. I feel like a lot of them don't want to be working, and I don't think that's anything wrong with that. And I think a lot of it has to do with the idea that the sunken cost fallacy of going to school and having to be just crippled with all this debt and all the things that they want to get, the consumerist brain, because unfortunately it affects women more than men. But that's not the whole point. Is that you'd rather be doing that than being just kind of stuck in a cubicle for the next 40 years without any real prospects of the other half of life, really, without it just being a continuation of college to the point where it's like, all right, time to grow up and there's no one around. And it just seems as though that's kind of shit. It's like they've gotten the short end of the stick for a lot of it, and they got sold the world, really, in the sense that they get the financial freedom of whatever they want to do. But in reality, it took everybody down with it in a way. So now it's kind of like we're in a weird mishmash of things, and it's a very unfortunate situation, and who knows what the hell we're supposed to do. Like, genuinely, I don't know. If anybody has a decent answer as to what we could do, that would be great. But I think it's just kind of fucked, really, until then. And not even to mention how terrible HR is and all that other stuff. But that's a different episode for a different day. But with that being said, though, tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions about this one. If you just know somebody that's a woman that happens to just be like, I fucking hate this job, but they don't have really a choice to do it, I would love to know just these stories, because I feel like this happens all the time. It's not a one-off thing. I think a lot of people have realized that this is the grave that they've made, and it's very unfortunate. But please let me know your comments. Please let me know your stories in the comment section down below. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this video with anybody who may or may not like it. I will be back on tomorrow with a new video. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I will see you in the next one. Keep it heavy. Stay safe out there. And stay cool. No, warm. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.